The marriage built on unequal worlds. Ethan Caldwell believed success could change everything. 5 years earlier, he had been just another struggling entrepreneur with big dreams and very little money. His tiny apartment smelled of instant coffee and sleepless nights, and his bank account barely survived each month. Yet during those uncertain days, there was one person who never doubted him. Lily Harper. She had entered his life quietly, almost gently, like a soft breeze that soothed the chaos around him. Lily worked at a small bookstore downtown, earning just enough to support herself and help her widowed mother. She dressed simply, spoke softly, and carried a warmth that made people feel comfortable around her. When Ethan met her, he was immediately drawn to that warmth. Unlike the ambitious people he surrounded himself with, Lily never asked him about money or success. She cared about his ideas, his dreams, and the way his eyes lit up when he talked about building something meaningful. For Ethan, that kind of support felt rare. Their relationship grew slowly but steadily. They shared cheap dinners, long evening walks, and endless conversations about the future. Lily believed in Ethan even when his business ideas failed, even when investors rejected him, and even when he considered giving up. "You'll succeed one day," she would say gently. And somehow, hearing those words made Ethan believe it too. 2 years later, they married in a small courthouse ceremony. There were no expensive decorations, no extravagant celebrations. Just a quiet promise between two people who believed love was enough. At least, that was how it began. Everything changed when Ethan's business finally succeeded. What started as a small tech consulting firm slowly expanded into a profitable company. Within a few years, Ethan's income multiplied, and opportunities opened that he had once only imagined. Wealthy clients invited him to exclusive events. Influential business partners sought his attention. His life became faster, louder, and far more glamorous. Lily watched the transformation quietly. At first, she was proud of him. She remembered the nights when he barely slept, the frustration he endured, and the risks he took to build his company. Seeing his success felt like witnessing a dream come true. But success did something else as well. It changed Ethan. The modest apartment they once shared was replaced by a luxurious house in a prestigious neighborhood. Their quiet evenings turned into formal dinners and social gatherings with strangers who spoke about investments, luxury vacations, and expensive tastes. Lily never felt comfortable in that world. While other women wore designer dresses and sparkling jewelry, Lily still preferred her simple clothes. She listened politely during conversations but rarely spoke unless someone addressed her directly. Her calm nature, once admired by Ethan, now seemed out of place among his ambitious friends. And people noticed. One evening during a corporate celebration, a woman named Vanessa Reed entered Ethan's life. Vanessa was everything Lily was not. Confident, stylish, and sharp-tongued, Vanessa worked in Ethan's company as a senior marketing executive. She understood business strategies, social dynamics, and the importance of appearances. In Ethan's fast-paced world, she moved effortlessly. From the moment she met Lily, Vanessa's smile carried a subtle hint of judgment. "She's sweet," Vanessa once remarked to Ethan after a company dinner, her tone carefully casual. "But she doesn't really fit this world, does she?" Ethan laughed it off at first, but the comment lingered in his mind. Over the following months, Vanessa's presence in Ethan's life grew stronger. She accompanied him to important meetings, helped negotiate business deals, and attended nearly every event where his company needed representation. Meanwhile, Lily stayed mostly at home. It wasn't that Ethan asked her to remain distant. Rather, Lily slowly withdrew on her own. The conversations bored her, the environment exhausted her, and the subtle stares from others made her feel like an outsider. Ethan noticed, and gradually, embarrassment replaced admiration. He began comparing Lily to the polished women around him. Women who understood the language of business, who knew how to charm investors, and who carried themselves with the elegance expected in wealthy circles. Vanessa never missed an opportunity to highlight that difference. "You deserve someone who can stand beside you," she told him one evening after a networking event. "Someone who matches your success." Ethan didn't respond. But the idea planted a quiet seed in his mind. While Ethan wrestled with those thoughts, Lily faced a different struggle. Her mother's health had been declining for months. The illness drained her strength slowly, leaving Lily worried and emotionally exhausted. Despite this, Lily rarely complained. She visited her mother whenever possible and tried to balance family responsibilities with her marriage. One rainy afternoon, Lily received the call she had been fearing. Her mother had collapsed. At the hospital, doctors spoke in careful voices and solemn expressions. The illness had progressed too far. There was nothing more they could do. Lily held her mother's hand during the final hours, whispering gentle reassurances even though her heart was breaking. Ethan arrived late that evening. He stood beside her briefly, offered a few quiet words, and then stepped outside to answer a business call. The next morning, Lily's mother passed away. The small funeral was held 2 days later. Rain fell steadily as Lily stood beside the grave, her face pale with grief. She had just lost the only family she had left. Ethan remained distant during the ceremony, checking his phone more often than he spoke. Later that evening, while Lily sat silently in their living room, Ethan made a decision. It was a decision he convinced himself was logical, practical, necessary, but it was also the moment that would change both their lives forever. Because only days after Lily buried her mother, Ethan Caldwell would hand his grieving wife a set of divorce papers. And in doing so, he would unknowingly walk away from the most important person he had ever known, the cruel divorce. The house felt unusually silent after the funeral. For Lily Caldwell, the silence was heavy, almost suffocating. Every corner of the living room reminded her of conversations she would never have again. Her mother had been her closest companion, the person who understood her gentle nature and quiet resilience. Losing her felt like losing a piece of herself. Yet the grief she carried was not the only distance growing inside the house. Ethan moved through the rooms like a stranger. He spent longer hours at work, returned home late, and spoke less each day. When Lily tried to share memories of her mother or express the sadness that overwhelmed her, Ethan listened briefly before changing the subject. His patience seemed thinner, his attention drifting elsewhere. Lily noticed the change but never accused him of anything. Instead, she convinced herself he was simply busy. Meanwhile, Vanessa Reed's presence in Ethan's life became more constant than ever. She joined him for business lunches, late-night strategy meetings, and networking events that stretched far past midnight. Vanessa understood Ethan's ambitions better than anyone around him. She knew how to flatter his confidence and feed his growing hunger for status. One evening, as they sat together after a company dinner, Vanessa stirred her glass slowly and studied him. "You've worked hard to build your success," she said thoughtfully. "But success changes expectations." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Vanessa offered a faint smile. "People at your level are judged differently. Image matters. Partnerships matter. The person standing beside you matters." Ethan remained quiet. Vanessa leaned slightly closer, lowering her voice. "Your wife is kind," she continued carefully. "But kindness isn't always enough in the world you're entering." The comment lingered long after their conversation ended. Over the following days, Ethan began noticing things he had once ignored. Lily's quiet personality seemed awkward during social gatherings. Her simple clothing looked out of place among designer dresses. When guests spoke about investments or global travel, Lily listened politely but rarely participated. For the first time, Ethan wondered if Vanessa was right. At home, Lily remained unaware of the storm building in Ethan's thoughts. She spent most of her time organizing her mother's belongings, carefully packing old photographs and handwritten letters into small boxes. Each item carried memories that made her both smile and cry. One afternoon, Ethan returned home earlier than usual. Lily was sitting at the dining table, holding a framed picture of her mother. Her eyes were red, but she quickly wiped them when she noticed him. "You're home early," she said softly. Ethan nodded without smiling. In his hand was a thin envelope. "Lily," he began, his voice strangely formal. "We need to talk." Something in his tone made Lily's heart tighten. She set the photograph down and waited. Ethan placed the envelope on the table between them. Inside were several neatly arranged pages. Divorce papers. For a moment, Lily didn't move. The words seemed unreal, like a language she could see but not fully understand. Her fingers trembled slightly as she turned the first page. "Ethan," she whispered. "What is this?" "You know what it is," he replied, avoiding her eyes. "This marriage isn't working anymore." The calmness in his voice hurt more than anger would have. Lily looked at him carefully, searching his expression for doubt or regret. Instead, she saw distance. "When did you decide this?" she asked quietly. Ethan sighed. "I've been thinking about it for a while." "A while," Lily repeated. "Even before my mother passed away." Ethan didn't answer. The silence between them was answer enough. Lily lowered her gaze to the papers again. Her hands rested gently on the table as if she needed its support to remain steady. "I thought we were partners," she said after a long moment. "I thought we built everything together." "We did," Ethan admitted. "But things change." His words felt cold and carefully rehearsed. Lily studied his face once more. There was no anger there, no hatred, only a quiet determination that made it clear his decision had already been made. Finally, she asked the question that mattered most. "Did you ever love me? Or was I only useful when you had nothing?" The question caught Ethan off guard. For a brief second, uncertainty flickered in his eyes, but pride quickly replaced it. "That's not fair," he said stiffly. "This isn't about the past. It's about the future." Lily gave a faint, almost sad smile. "Yes," she said softly. "I suppose it is." Without arguing further, she picked up the pen lying beside the documents. Ethan watched in silence as she signed her name. There were no tears, no dramatic protests, just a quiet sound of ink moving across paper. When she finished, Lily slid the papers back toward him. "I'll only ask for one thing," she said. Ethan frowned slightly. "What?" "My mother's house," Lily replied. "It's small and old, but it's the only place that still feels like home." Ethan nodded immediately. "That's fine." For the first time since their conversation began, Lily stood up. She walked upstairs slowly and returned a few minutes later carrying a small suitcase. Ethan looked surprised. "You're leaving tonight?" "There's no reason to stay," she answered gently. At the door, she paused for a moment. For a brief second, Ethan wondered if she would turn back. Instead, Lily opened the door and stepped outside. Rain had begun falling again. As she walked down the driveway, a sleek black luxury car pulled up beside her. The driver stepped out respectfully and opened the rear door. Ethan watched from the window, confused. He had assumed Lily would call a taxi. But this was no taxi, and as the car drove away into the night, Ethan had no idea that the quiet woman he had just divorced was about to reveal a truth that would change everything. The truth revealed. The black car moved silently through the rain-soaked streets. Lily sat in the back seat with her small suitcase resting beside her feet. The city lights flickered against the window, reflecting faintly in her tired eyes. Only hours earlier she had walked out of the house she once believed would always be her home. Now that chapter of her life had ended. For several minutes, no one spoke. Then the driver finally broke the silence. "We'll arrive soon, Miss Harper." Lily nodded quietly. The name sounded strangely distant after years of hearing herself called Lily Caldwell. Yet it was still her name, the one she had carried long before she met Ethan. The car turned onto a wide avenue lined with tall trees and gated estates. Eventually, it stopped in front of a large mansion illuminated by warm golden lights. The driver stepped out and opened the door for her. As Lily stepped onto the gravel driveway, a tall man walked toward her from the entrance. Daniel Harper, though the years had added silver to his hair, his sharp eyes still carried the same intensity Lily remembered from childhood. He studied her carefully before speaking. "You look just like your mother," he said quietly. Lily forced a small smile. "I missed you, Uncle Daniel." Daniel's expression softened slightly. Without another word, he guided her inside the house. The mansion was elegant but calm, filled with antique furniture and quiet hallways that carried the weight of history. It was very different from the modern luxury Ethan had surrounded himself with. Daniel led Lily into a private study. "I heard about your mother," he said gently once the door closed. "I'm sorry I wasn't there." Lily lowered her gaze. "She would have been happy you came tonight." Daniel nodded slowly. Years earlier, Disagreements had created distance between him and Lily's mother. While he built a powerful business empire, Lily's mother had chosen a humble life far away from wealth and influence. But blood, no matter how distant, was never truly forgotten. After a moment of silence, Daniel looked at the suitcase beside Lily's chair. "You didn't bring much," he observed. "I didn't need much," Lily replied softly. Daniel studied her again, sensing something deeper behind her calm voice. "Your husband didn't come with you." The statement was simple, but Lily understood the question hidden within it. "We're divorced," she said quietly. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "When did this happen?" "Tonight." The answer filled the room with tension. For several seconds Daniel said nothing. Then he slowly walked to the window, his expression darkening as he processed the information. "He divorced you the same week your mother died?" he asked. "Yes." Daniel exhaled slowly, struggling to hide his anger. That man clearly didn't understand who he was married to. Lily remained silent. For years she had hidden her family background from Ethan. When they first met, she wanted their relationship to grow without the influence of wealth or power. She wanted to know that his feelings for her were genuine. At the time, it had seemed like the right decision. Now she wondered if the truth would have changed anything. Daniel turned back toward her. "Your mother always believed you deserved a life built on love," he said. "That's why she chose to stay away from the family fortune." Lily nodded. "And I respected her decision," Daniel continued. "But things are different now." He walked toward the large desk and opened a leather folder. Inside were several documents. "Your mother left everything to you," he explained. "Her shares, her assets, and her position in the Harper Foundation." Lily stayed at the papers in quiet disbelief. The Harper Foundation was one of the largest charitable organizations in the country. Its influence reached hospitals, schools, and countless humanitarian projects. And now, according to the documents in front of her, Lily was its primary heir. "You're not just inheriting wealth," Daniel said calmly. "You're inheriting responsibility." Lily took a slow breath. She had spent most of her life avoiding the world of power her family once controlled. Yet the moment had arrived when she could no longer ignore it. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan Caldwell sat in his office staring at a financial report that made his stomach tighten. His company had recently been negotiating a major investment deal, one that promised to expand his business internationally. But that evening, the investors had unexpectedly withdrawn. At first, Ethan assumed it was a minor delay. Then his assistant entered with a follow-up message. The investment group was connected to a larger financial organization, the Harper Foundation. Ethan frowned as he read the name again. He had heard of the foundation before. Its influence in business and philanthropy was enormous, and its board members had the power to support or destroy companies with a single decision. What changed their mind? Ethan asked. His assistant hesitated. "They've appointed a new executive director," she said. Ethan leaned back in his chair. "Who?" She placed another document on his desk. Ethan glanced down casually. Then his eyes widened. At the top of the page was a photograph. The woman standing confidently beside several board members looked different from the quiet wife he had known for years. Her posture was stronger, her expression calm and composed. But there was no mistaking her identity. Lily Harper. Ethan stayed at the photograph, a cold realization spreading through his chest. The woman he had divorced only hours earlier was now the person controlling the very foundation capable of shaping his company's future. And for the first time since signing the divorce papers, Ethan Caldwell felt something he had not expected. Fear, regret, and consequences. The realization struck Ethan Caldwell like a sudden storm. For several minutes, he sat motionless behind his desk, staring at the photograph in disbelief. The woman in the image stood confidently beside influential board members, dressed with quiet elegance and authority. Her expression was calm, composed, and far removed from the gentle, quiet woman who had once waited for him at home. Yet there was no doubt. It was Lily Harper. Ethan felt a tightening in his chest as the truth slowly settled into his mind. The Harper Foundation was not just another charitable organization. It was a powerful institution with vast financial resources and international influence. And Lily was now leading it. The woman he had dismissed as insignificant, was suddenly one of the most powerful figures connected to his industry. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his thoughts racing. Had she always been this person? Had she hidden her identity all those years? A deeper question soon followed. Why had she never told him? But before Ethan could explore that thought further, his phone buzzed. It was Vanessa. "Did you see the news?" she asked immediately when he answered. "Yes," Ethan replied quietly. Vanessa laughed lightly. "Well, that's unexpected. Your ex-wife turns out to be incredibly wealthy. Who would have guessed?" Ethan didn't respond. Vanessa continued speaking, her tone casual but curious. "Honestly, though, it doesn't change anything. You made the right choice. Someone like her never belonged in your world anyway." Ethan ended the call without replying. For the first time, Vanessa's words didn't feel reassuring. Instead, they sounded hollow. Memories began resurfacing in his mind. He remembered the early days of his business when failure felt constant and hope was fragile. During those times, Lily had stood beside him without hesitation. She had believed in his ambitions when no one else did. She had supported him when success seemed impossible. And when success finally arrived, he had slowly pushed her aside. The weight of that realization pressed heavily against his conscience. The following week brought more difficult news. Several investors connected to the Harper Foundation decided not to renew their partnerships with Ethan's company. While none of them gave a direct explanation, the message was clear. Influence had shifted. Ethan knew exactly where that influence now resided. He spent several days debating what to do. Pride urged him to remain silent, to accept the consequences of his decision and move forward without looking back. But regret whispered a different suggestion. Eventually, regret won. Through a mutual business contact, Ethan learned that Lily would be attending a major charity gala hosted by the Harper Foundation. The event would gather influential leaders from business, politics, and philanthropy. If he wanted to speak to her, that would be his opportunity. The night of the gala arrived with dazzling lights and elegant music filling a luxurious ballroom. Guests in formal attire moved through the hall, exchanging polite conversations and professional greetings. Ethan entered quietly, feeling strangely out of place among the crowd he once navigated with confidence. Then he saw her. Lily stood near the center of the room speaking with several distinguished guests. She wore a graceful dark blue gown that reflected the soft light around her. Her posture was poised, her expression calm yet confident. People listened carefully when she spoke. They respected her. For a moment, Ethan struggled to reconcile this commanding presence with a woman he had once underestimated. Eventually, Lily noticed him. Their eyes met across the room. A brief silence passed between them before she politely excused herself from the conversation and approached him. "Ethan," she said calmly. Her voice carried no bitterness, but it also lacked the warmth he remembered. "Lily," he replied, suddenly uncertain of what to say next. Up close, he could see the subtle strength in her expression. The sadness that once lingered in her eyes had been replaced by quiet confidence. "I wanted to talk," Ethan finally said. Lily nodded politely. "I assumed you might." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan took a slow breath. "I made a mistake," he admitted. "A terrible one." Lily watched him patiently. "I let success change me," he continued. "I started caring about things that never mattered before. Status, appearances, people's opinions." His voice lowered, "And I forgot the person who stood beside me when I had nothing." Lily listened without interrupting. Ethan hesitated before speaking again. "I'm sorry," he said sincerely. "For everything." For the first time that evening, Lily's expression softened slightly. "I appreciate the apology," she replied gently. Hope flickered in Ethan's chest. "Does that mean we could?" But Lily raised her hand slightly, stopping him. "When I had nothing," she said quietly, "you chose to leave." Her words were calm but firm. "And now that I have everything," she continued, "you've come back." Ethan lowered his gaze, unable to deny the truth behind his statement. Lily studied him for a moment longer before speaking again. "I don't hate you, Ethan," she said. "But some decisions change the direction of our lives permanently." Her voice remained composed, yet final. "I've forgiven you," she added softly. "But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the past." Ethan understood. For the first time since discovering Lily's true identity, he realized something far more painful than losing wealth or influence. He had lost the person who once loved him without conditions, and no amount of regret could bring that back. As Lily turned and walked away to greet other guests, Ethan remained standing alone in the bright ballroom. The noise of conversations continued around him, but none of it reached his thoughts, because the greatest mistake of Ethan Caldwell's life had already been made, and its consequences would follow him long after that night ended.